It starts with a single tap. A package was ordered. A promise made. Arriving tomorrow, guaranteed. But that speed? It doesn't come from nowhere. It's powered by 23-year-olds collapsing in heat waves. By drivers who skip meals to meet impossible quotas. By warehouses that run like machines, fueled not by electricity, but exhaustion. FedEx is a miracle of logistics. Planes in the air, trucks on the ground, software syncing every second. But beneath that polished surface is a system built on silence. For decades, FedEx has avoided unions, dodged billions in taxes, and turned its workers into data points, all while profiting from the very public infrastructure it barely pays for. And then came February 2022. Another young worker. Another death. Another unfortunate event in a company where tragedy is treated like a scheduling error. This isn't just a story of corporate greed. It's a warning. Because when you build an empire on control, sustain it with surveillance, and protect it through loopholes and silence, eventually, something breaks. And when it does, it's not the packages that fall. It's the people. This is the story FedEx doesn't want told. The story of an empire that moves the world, but may have lost its soul in the process. This is FedEx, fast, ruthless, and watching. Every revolution starts with an idea. For Fred Smith, it began with pain and vision. Born on August 11, 1944, in Marks, Mississippi, Fred faced hardship early on. At just 4 years old, he lost his father. Soon after, he was diagnosed with Perth's disease, a condition that made it painful to walk and left him in leg braces for years. But Fred overcame it, physically and emotionally. By age 10, he could walk. By 15, he had earned his pilot's license. At Yale University, he wrote a paper proposing a new kind of delivery system, a centralized, overnight network using dedicated aircraft. But Fred wasn't writing for a grade. He was mapping the future of global logistics. After Yale, Smith joined the US Marine Corps, serving 2 tours in Vietnam as a combat pilot and navigator. There, he learned the brutal inefficiencies of military logistics. Supplies delayed, coordination broken, lives at stake. And when he returned from war in 1970, Fred didn't just want to build a business. He wanted to build something that worked. In 1971, using a $4 million inheritance and over $91 million in venture capital, Fred launched Federal Express. His vision: packages delivered overnight, reliably, efficiently, anywhere in the country. The original target? Check clearance. Fred struck a deal with the Federal Reserve to deliver bank checks across the country in 24 hours, a revolution at the time. He bought a fleet of small aircraft, painted Federal Express across the side, and launched. But then, the Federal Reserve backed out. The deal collapsed, but the name stayed. And on April 17, 1973, FedEx took flight. 14 aircraft, 389 team members. 186 packages delivered to 25 cities, overnight. The location? Memphis, Tennessee, selected for its central geography, favorable weather, and accommodating airport. This decision would turn Memphis into the busiest cargo airport in the world. But then came the 1973 oil crisis. Jet fuel prices soared. Operating costs exploded. FedEx was bleeding cash. The company was down to its last $5,000. Then, Fred made the most reckless, legendary gamble in business history. On a Friday, with a $24,000 fuel bill due Monday, he took FedEx's final $5,000 and flew to Las Vegas. At the blackjack table, he bet it all. Win or lose, this was the endgame. Miraculously, he turned $5,000 into $27,000. Enough to keep the planes in the air for 1 more week. That gamble bought him time. And within days, he secured $11 million in new investment. FedEx lived to fly another day. From there, the momentum built fast. By the late 1970s, Smith lobbied the US government to deregulate the airline cargo industry, allowing FedEx to fly heavier loads. In 1978, the Airline Deregulation Act passed. The next move? Going public, FedEx listed on the New York Stock Exchange, unlocking massive capital. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, the company exploded, launching its Memphis superhub, becoming the first US company to track packages with computers, expanding internationally to Europe, Asia, and beyond, acquiring global couriers, building a network that would span 220 countries, pioneering online package tracking. FedEx didn't just create a service. It built a system, a relentless, real-time, round-the-clock engine that would move over 15 million packages a day.
Today, FedEx employs more than 530,000 people and moves 15 million packages a day aboard a fleet of 700 airplanes, including the wide-bodied Boeing 777.
Inside FedEx, this drive for perfection became a culture. Employees were expected to run on FedEx time, no delays, no downtime, no excuses. Efficiency wasn't a goal, it was a religion. But behind every great system is a hidden cost. The faster FedEx grew, the harder it pushed, its planes, its software, and most of all, its people. And that's where the next chapter begins. To build an empire of speed, you need more than just trucks and airplanes. You need control, total, uninterrupted control. Not just of routes and packages, but of people. At FedEx, that control didn't stop with logistics. It extended deep into the labor force. From the beginning, FedEx made one thing clear: unions are bad for business. Unlike UPS, where workers are protected by the powerful Teamsters Union, FedEx structured its empire to avoid union presence altogether. FedEx Express falls under the Railway Labor Act, a law written for trains and airlines that requires a nationwide vote for unionization, not a local one. And when FedEx acquired RPS in 1998, it doubled down by classifying its drivers as independent contractors, not employees. On paper, these workers ran their own businesses. In practice, they wore FedEx uniforms, followed FedEx routes, drove FedEx branded trucks, and operated on FedEx time. Meanwhile, UPS drivers, working under union contracts, received better pay, healthcare, pensions, and protection. The difference was stark. And yet, FedEx profit margins soared. Because union-free meant cost control. And cost control meant Wall Street smiled. But FedEx didn't stop at controlling contracts. It moved inside the truck, the warehouse, even the employee's body. Cameras inside delivery vans watched for yawns. Advanced AI flagged behavior as non-compliance, often without nuance or context. The message was clear: every second belongs to the algorithm. Inside sorting facilities, the control intensified. FedEx invested in six-sided barcode scanners, high-speed dimension readers, biometric scanners for clockers, and even scanner gloves, wearable devices that turn hands into data tools. As one FedEx exec proudly stated, these are only the second hands to touch the package. The first, a machine. This wasn't just optimization. It was mechanization of the human role. UPS mirrored some of this with its preload assist system, removing decisions from workers and instead assigning truck positions via software. At both companies, the goal was the same: to skill labor, speed up output, reduce friction. It's the perfect illusion, a company that moves the world, yet pays almost nothing to support it. FedEx, the global shipping titan that depends on publicly funded roads and taxpayer-subsidized airports, has built more than a logistics empire. It's constructed a financial fortress designed to protect profits and shed responsibility. In 2017, CEO Fred Smith personally lobbied for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which dramatically slashed corporate tax rates. A year later, FedEx earned over $4 billion in profit and paid zero federal income tax. Capital expenditure deductions, strategic depreciation, and accounting tactics that turned tax avoidance into an art form. Publicly, FedEx claimed the windfall would be reinvested into infrastructure and workers. Privately, most of the money went into stock buybacks, padding investor returns while warehouse conditions remained unchanged. And yet, FedEx continues to extract value from the public, using roads it doesn't maintain, receiving airport access funded by local governments, and accepting hundreds of millions in state subsidies for so-called job creation. But these jobs, often low-paying, high turnover, and built on a contractor model that minimizes obligations. It's a textbook case of privatized profit and socialized cost. FedEx Edge doesn't just come from speed. It comes from tax code engineering, loophole optimization, and strategic distance, from both legal accountability and its own workers. Unlike its main rival, UPS, a unionized company that pays higher wages and complies with stronger labor standards, FedEx's business model relies on efficiency through insulation. And the gap between boardroom privilege and ground floor labor couldn't be wider. While shareholders reap billions, communities lose out, schools suffer from lost tax revenue. Emergency services go understaffed. Roads wear down under constant truck pressure. And in the end, the ones delivering the packages are the ones shouldering the cost. For decades, FedEx built its empire on speed, control, and precision. But behind the seamless movement of millions of packages were lives quietly breaking, stories that never made the headlines, tragedies buried under the weight of logistics. In February 2022, Jessica James, a 33-year-old forklift operator, was crushed to death at the company's massive world hub in Memphis. Her vehicle flipped over a damaged ramp, an accident that OSHA later blamed on 6 serious safety violations. Workers had long raised concerns about unsafe equipment and ignored complaints.
New this morning, a worker at a FedEx facility in Memphis is dead after an incident overnight. WREG reports it happened at the FedEx hub there in Memphis. Police say the woman died after an accident that happened while she operated a forklift. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say an investigation is ongoing.
FedEx called it an isolated tragedy, but those working inside knew better. Jessica wasn't the first, and sadly, she wouldn't be the last. Then, in November 2023, Verna Mae Jackson, an 86-year-old longtime FedEx employee, was struck and killed by a heavy-duty dolly, again at the Memphis hub. Her death marked at least the 5th fatality at that facility since 2017. These weren't random accidents. They were signs of a system under pressure.
We're learning new details tonight in the death of an 86-year-old worker at the FedEx World Hub. Verna Mae Jackson was killed on the night of November 29th after an injury on the job.
Action News 5's Bria Bolden live in our studio tonight with new information about Ms. Jackson and about the accident that took her life. Bria.
And yet, FedEx's response wasn't meaningful reform, it was deflection. Executives pointed fingers at third-party contractors, insufficient training, or individual errors. Inside warehouses, the response wasn't better ventilation or more oversight, it was more automation. More AI monitoring. More sensors. The message was clear: productivity mattered more than people. Then came June 2025 and a different kind of loss. Fred Smith, the founder and architect of the FedEx empire, passed away.
FedEx founder Fred Smith died Saturday in Memphis of natural causes. Smith was a revolutionary business leader. He dreamed up the idea of FedEx while he was a student at Yale University. He wrote an economics paper on it, and his professor gave him a grade of a C.
The same man who once saved the company with a desperate bet at a Las Vegas blackjack table was now gone. By now, the headlines were unavoidable. The deaths, the lawsuits, the union protests, the growing global scrutiny. Protests broke out at major FedEx hubs in California, Texas, and Illinois. Meanwhile, competitors like UPS leaned into labor protections, using their union partnerships to promise safety upgrades. Amazon, long criticized for heat-related worker injuries, began installing cooling systems in its warehouses. But FedEx doubled down on software, on robotics, on sensors. AI replaced human supervisors. Machines took over sorting. The system didn't mourn Jessica. It didn't pause for Werner. And it didn't change after Fred Smith's passing. Because at FedEx, the system doesn't stop, even when people do. FedEx isn't just a delivery company. It's a symbol of modern capitalism, of precision logistics, of what it means to promise overnight in a world that never sleeps. But behind every guaranteed delivery, behind every on-time package, lies a hidden cost, not measured in dollars, but in human sweat, in overlooked injuries, in silent suffering. The nameless warehouse hands, the overworked drivers. They aren't logistics, they're people. FedEx built an empire on speed. But now, it must confront the question it's long avoided. What happens when the system you built to serve customers stops serving the people who built it? The world is watching. Workers are rising. And the clock, the one FedEx once controlled so well, is now ticking in reverse.